Steve, we've been talking about the IP video system design and a site survey to gather the right information. One of the components that is a big part now of a network-based system are other systems beyond the IP. And the need to integrate those other security systems into one platform. I guess first, give me an idea of what you've seen in your experience that customers want to integrate with their IP video.
This is a time where, or a topic that really requires a whiteboard. I like the rooms that have whiteboards that go from floor to ceiling and wrap all the way around. Yeah. But integration comes in all forms. It can be very simple, meaning contact closures that feed from one system to the other, all the way up through very tightly wound integrations where video can appear in a second system, or information from one of the systems communicates directly across a network or across a data port to the first system, or many systems that actually all play together very well, tightly wound together very well for the customer to get what they want in terms of system functionality.
And some of those systems would include, I'm assuming, access control, intrusion detection. I've even seen building controls. Again, events that happen within any of these disparate systems cause perhaps video associated with that event to occur. So I guess that brings our conversation with the customer, what they want what does integration mean to them? And that, I think, we really have to define because it can mean different things to different facilities. So what do you want to occur within your system when an event happens?
Right, so one of the first things, it's kind of laughable, we do a lot of video, and we also do access control and IDS and fence protection and a lot of other things. But there's a lot of things that go on in a control room when it associates with security. All those things sort of have to work together. You want the operator to be able to sit in one place and try to not turn around and look at a lot of different monitors to find out what's going on. So we want to be able to have all those different systems kind of come together and right in front of the operator and have an event from any one of those systems be handled by the operator without the operator having to get a book out or figure out what's going on within that system. And so you have to kind of determine what systems are the most important to you in terms of your operation. Is the card access and the intrusion more important than the video? And when I say more important, it doesn't mean that you don't care about one or the other. It is, in my daily operation, which system is really going to be the lead system and which other systems are going to be plugged into that in terms of how the user interfaces to their system.
And I noticed you said lead system, if you will, and a lot of times that might be the video management system, and the other disparate systems integrate to that for video viewing. However, a lot of customers have deployed PSIMs to associate all those systems together. So that is at the high level, one common platform to bring all the systems together.
So if you think about that in terms of a wheel, like a wagon wheel, where you have a hub, that's the piece where the customer would interface to the system, and all the spokes around the wheel that would go out, those would talk to the different systems. Elevator control, fire, perimeter protection, the IDS, the card access, the video, barrier controls, all those different systems that are out there, anything that could work with the system would effectively have to be around that wheel and attached to a spoke, and then that central user interface could be the PSIM, which is the ability for one piece of software to connect to, communicate with, and control all those disparate systems around that wagon wheel.
And I know part of that hub, which is a great analogy that the user is interfacing with, can be a map. I know maps have become very popular. Tell me about what you see with maps and then the icons within those maps that allow us to integrate.
Well, there's two different kinds of maps. There's static maps, which are they just would appear when there's an event, and it would give you sort of a layout of a specific area or a specific building. And there's really nothing that goes on within the map. It just shows you static devices on a map so that you can reference that when making decisions or interfacing with the system. The other kind of map, I usually call it a dynamic map, which means that map is sort of live and there's a lot of different things going on. You can place icons on the map. Those icons may change color. You can grab an icon, with your mouse and drag and drop it off on a viewing screen, or get the status of a device based on highlighting the device on a map. So maps are a big plus to these systems because, number one, they get very big now and they get very spread out. Secondly, making the devices, the different system devices appear on the map, allow you to quickly know when a device is in an alarm, what other devices around it that you could use to your advantage to figure out what's going on in that area. So it could be a forced door, it could be a fire alarm, it could be one of a lot of different things, a barrier that somebody has lowered or raised. Anything, and then you can also see all the other devices, a camera, so you can quickly drag that camera out onto the viewing area and do a cameo and display that video that's associated with that event so that you get a better idea of what's going on. The maps can be very friendly. You can jump between maps with different types of connection icons and so on and so forth. So an operator can easily move around a system through many buildings or multiple floors in a building using those maps and using those linker icons to have much greater fluidity of the operation and the ability to control the system in a much easier fashion.
Yeah, and I agree. I've seen it used, and it's much easier to interface potentially than a camera device tree of 500 cameras and trying to figure out what parking lot camera is associated with what area of the campus. So certainly maps and moving in between the maps has become a big feature that users really respond well to. Let's tie this all together a little bit. Obviously, this is an important conversation to have with customers. When I'm developing my bill of materials and my system design after these conversations about how they're using this integration, what costs might be associated with that I have to be aware of when I'm developing this fully integrated system?
A couple of things. Any sort of integration license that are going to have an effect on the different types of systems you're integrating together. Some of the manufacturers have some really nicely done, tightly written integrations that allow the systems to communicate very well. Those typically have some sort of cost associated with them, and those are license costs. You may have some other hardware costs in terms of how the things plug and play. Say if you don't have a nicely written data type integration, you may have some costs associated with network-based contact closure gathering devices, or you may have some other costs associated with, programming the system. The more complex that you make the system, the more cost might be associated with actually programming the system. But once it's programmed, that cost is deemed to be a pretty is deemed to be a good expense because it makes the operator have a much better experience with the system.
I think that basically sums it up for us, that we want, at the end of the day, the customer, the owner of the system, to have a great experience. We need to educate them on what is possible and develop a bill of materials, a system that works very well for them, very efficiently, and helps them mitigate their risk in the best possible method.
Absolutely. Having an open conversation and really understanding what the customer's needs are and what are the systems they have, and even maybe explaining that maybe they weren't integrated together previously, but based on what some experience might be out there, looking at what integrations can bring to them is a big plus. One of the other things I want to mention is most of those integrations, the manufacturers communicate that information fairly well. So if you don't know if a system is integrated one way or the other, or what versions of software, which platforms are integrated, most of the manufacturers have some really decent tools on the web that allow you to go out and see what third-party software is integrated and then what feature sets those integrations bring to the table on those web tools.
I've seen that information, and yes, it's very helpful that it tells you what can be integrated to what level and what complexity. So I think the message here is we need to have this conversation with the customer. Obviously, we would like to be part of that as early as possible so that we can help our customer, help develop the right system, deploy a system that works very well for the customer, and we can help develop that bill of materials for all those required integrations.
Absolutely.